Welcome to World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss, the podcast for busy professionals who want to plan unforgettable trips without the stress. If you're craving adventure, relaxation, or cultural immersion, but feel overwhelmed where to start, this is the show for you. Each week, we dive into travel tips, expert strategies, and actionable advice to help you save time, money, and hassle while helping you design your dream trip. From group getaways to romantic escapes to adventure packed journeys and budget friendly tips, we cover it all. I'm Ross, your host and travel enthusiast, with over a decade of experience balancing a demanding career while also planning trips to over 25 cities in Europe, all over the US, Central America, the Caribbean, and beyond. I've mastered the art of stress free planning, and I'm here to help you do the same. If you love what you hear, don't forget to follow the show, leave us a review, as well as share it with a fellow traveler. I want to make your next adventure the easiest and most memorable yet. Now, on with the show. Welcome back to another episode of World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss. I'm excited for this week to have on Toni Perkins. I got connected with Toni through one of our former guests, Caroline Lapini, and really excited to have her on because she's going to speak to all things family travel, how to keep it all organized when you have kids and you're traveling. And she's an expert. She's worked at Forbes Advisor as well as AwardWallet. So wanted to bring her on. Hey, Toni, how are you doing today?
Hey, so good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to have you on and excited for you to share a lot of information and your area of expertise around family travel and some of the exciting stories that you have to offer. But I don't want to sell you short with my introduction. So would love to hear a little bit more about your background, where you've worked, where you've gone with your kids and everything.
Okay, here we go. There's a lot to it. Where to start? Um, so I'll start with kind of like getting into travel because that's ultimately what led to where I'm at now. So years and years ago, let's see, where did it all start? Okay, so my husband, he had served in the military and he had been deployed. He was in Afghanistan. And I remember, everyone we had two kids at the time. He left when our second was 3 months old. So I just remember, everyone talked about like the deployment itself isn't the hardest part. It's like when they come home, readjusting to real life, all those things. So we made it a goal of ours to just take some big kind of trip, just the two of us to like rekindle and just kind of like figure out who each other is again, all those things. So we ended up going to Europe. It was the first time I'd ever traveled, and we spent a fortune. And this was just me and my husband, no kids. My parents had watched my kids, which was really, really hard too, because, they're babies, they're toddlers, they have a lot of needs and stuff. So, yeah, we quickly realized, like, okay, so we will probably never travel again because it's so much money. So, fast forward a few years, and we had three kids at this point. And I remember I had this really interesting conversation with my cousin. And I tell this story all the time. My cousin probably dies every time she hears it, but I like thought she had gotten involved with like a cult because she's telling me about like this travel hacking and things. And I just was like, oh my gosh, like what kind of like Bernie Madoff, is that his name? Madoff
Yeah.
guy, like, thing have you gotten into? Like, I am so concerned for you. And she was just like, oh no, like he used like points and miles. And just ended up talking with her husband more about it that night. And I was just like hooked after that. I just never, I mean, that was 13, 14 years ago. And like I haven't slowed down since then. So um, we booked our first trip with the three boys. I had three boys first. We went to Puerto Rico, which was super, super exciting for me because that's where my family's from, and I had never had the opportunity to go. And like prior to Points and Miles, I would have never really dreamed of probably taking my kids to Puerto Rico. But yeah, so we went to Puerto Rico and we got to use that was back in the day for people who've been doing this for a while when you used to easily be able to get Hilton free night credits through or free night awards through the city cards. They handed them out like candy. So we went and stayed at this like really fancy resort there, something we never would have dreamed of doing. And we were just super hooked after that. So
Love it.
fast forward another year, another kid. So we're at four kids now, three boys, little girl. And we decided to go really big. And when my youngest, my daughter was 3 months old, we took them all to Paris, and it was the best thing ever. Like it exceeded our expectations. We were just thrilled at how wonderful it went. And we're like, okay, like let's do this. So that just kind of sparked traveling with the kids even more.
Yeah.
But it got, another level of like complication came on because my husband worked in the gas and oil fields at the time. So he would be gone for weeks at a time, like sometimes even months at a time. Like I was essentially solo momming it a lot. And there was this point where I just kind of had this like epiphany where I was like, you know what? You're already crazy. You might as well be crazy somewhere cool. So that kind of became my motto. And I started traveling as a solo parent with my kids. My husband would join us like anytime he could. And yeah, one thing led to another. My first big solo trip with them, we took off to Europe and we were there for 2.5 months, just figuring it out. And it was crazy, like all the crazy things that like happened. Like my kids were still little, like I was still breastfeeding my daughter. Like it was me and four babies there. One of my sons got an abscess tooth. Like we just had all of these crazy things happen, but we figured it out. And here we are all these years later, just still traveling. And yeah, so, um, and then to tie that into like kind of work, just kind of getting into the points of the miles and the family thing. Years ago, back in like 2016, I maybe even earlier. Ooh, 2015. I don't know. I can't like to me, 2015 was like 5 years ago, not
Yeah.
10. Right, right. It's crazy. But I started working for specifically Award Travel 101, which is owned by AwardWallet. Started helping run their Facebook group, and I worked there for about 5 years. And then I moved on, and now I'm full time at Forbes Advisor as a lead editor with their credit cards and travel rewards.
I
So
love it.
here we are today.
And just for that, we're going to dive a lot deeper into just family
Yeah.
travel and everything. I have a lot of questions about that for our listeners, but just I know a lot of times I get asked, like you said on the beginning, it's like points and miles. Like, what is that? Like, I signed up for maybe American because that's the hub, or maybe I signed up for
Yeah.
United. That's kind of the extent, or maybe I have a credit card and I'm not saying me, I'm just saying this is common
Yeah.
things that I hear like, oh, I redeem it for Amazon, you know, raw gift cards, which is like prob the worst thing to do. But like for
Yeah.
people who are, they have a credit card, maybe they have two, and they're like, okay, this is overwhelming. Like I'm confused. Do you mind explaining just like what Award Wallet is and like, because I think that's one thing that a lot of
Mhm.
people sometimes have no idea that there's these tools out there that can help from an organization standpoint, just different apps, things like that. So I think it'd be helpful just for people
Yeah.
to understand that because I always get to ask those questions around those type of tools and resources.
Yeah. I feel so happy for people who are kind of getting into their travel hacking journey, points and miles journey like these days, because there are so many amazing resources. Back in like when I started, it was like the Wild West out there. I think TPG it was just kind of up and coming. I mean, he was established,
Yeah.
but it was just so different than it is today, and all these different blogs and the resources and the tools. And yeah, so I do believe Award Wallet was around back in the day when I did start this. If it was, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. But yeah, so Award Wallet's really cool because it tracks all your points and miles, everything that you have. You just enter in like your loyalty program number or your account information. It's super secure. I mean, I've had them for forever. I've never had a security issue or anything like that. And it will track all your points and miles and things like that for you. But it also goes a lot deeper. It has a lot of different tools. I mean, there's stuff like, I don't know, maybe a lot of people don't know about this, but they have a merchant lookup tool. So, like, let's say you have 5 credit cards and you need to run to Walmart and you're like, what do I use? You can type in like Walmart and it'll say, like, oh, the purple bank pretty card earns 5 times at Walmart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's really like helpful like that. It also um like kind of plans or it'll organize like itineraries. So if you are traveling, it will parse your email and get all your travel plans and put it in like a nice organized little document. So you have all your information right there. Yeah. So definitely there are so many amazing tools out there to help you track all these different things because unfortunately, tracking is a pretty vital part of this. As someone who is like, I'm openly proclaimed to be like relatively unorganized and suck at tracking, there is still like a level of tracking that you have to do. So,
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like a lot of, and I like to ask that question. That's super helpful because I think a lot of people have different processes or just things in place where it might be Google Docs or Google
Yeah.
spreadsheets or Word docs. And like over the years, I've had that and have, some of my own process. But as you start to have more and more credit cards, you have different rewards programs, just a lot of different things to track. It's always
Hmm.
super helpful to have those tools. And that's one of the goals
Hmm.
is always to bring, because a lot of people are overwhelmed, whether they're just getting started, if they're single, if they have a significant other. As we started to
Hmm.
talk about kids and you have even more things bringing in,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and that makes it so it's just having a solution that makes it simple for people. And
Hmm.
no, I appreciate you sharing that. I would love to learn a little bit more because you talked about when you first went on your trip with your husband and you're like, this is way too expensive. We're never going to do that again. I think a lot of people, when they start to have kids, and I'm seeing this now with a lot of my friends having kids, like, oh, it's too
Hmm.
expensive. We can't travel. It's not in the budget.
Well,
They, ex-
it is expensive.
yeah,
Yeah. It can
yeah,
be. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Or it's too difficult. But I think
Mhm.
for overcoming that, like what are just ways, points, and miles can change examples that it can change kind of
Yeah.
perception.
Well, the cool thing about points and miles is you can go as crazy or as like simple as you want with them. If you just want to, cut a few costs, or maybe it's not even like so much like the cost, but you just want to be fancy and fly everyone in business class, little things like that that are holding you back from traveling, you can go as simple or as crazy to have like, I mean, we're talking, I spent 6 weeks in Central, no. 2 months in Central America several years ago, and I even figured out how to get my kids like Spanish school covered with points and miles. So, you can go as crazy as you want. But that being said, yeah, like you shouldn't let money hold you back if you want to travel with your family. And I know that probably sounds very like kind of tone deaf and like very privileged. And I do recognize like what an amazing privilege this is. But there are so many incredible options out there that you can use to help you guys, live your dreams when it comes to traveling with your family. The other, part of that equation though is like, okay, so I have the points and miles and that's all covered, but just the difficulty involved, the planning and all those things. And once again, just like points and miles, you can go as in-depth, crazy, planning everything as you want to go, or you can kind of be like me. And we wing it a lot of times. There are times where I maybe wing it a little too much and we get somewhere and I'm like, oh, I forgot to book a hotel. So that's awkward. It's only happened like twice. Actually, okay, stop. I have to tell you, not stop recording, but I have to tell you guys the most horrific. Okay, I'm going to tell you this story about making mistakes because I want you guys to understand like it's okay to make mistakes, not the end of the world. Traveling with your kids, it is going to be difficult, but it's a doable difficult and you can navigate it and you can figure it out. Okay. Once upon a time, 3 years ago, my family, we were in Turkey. And we were staying in Izmir, so like more the western side. And I just gotta like build the story a little bit. Okay, I gotta get a little details here. So it was kind of a crazy morning. So we woke up at like 4 a.m. to an earthquake, and that was a little terrifying. I remember waking up and being like, hearing like this banging sound, and I was like, "Are they seriously doing construction at 4 a.m.?" And then the room was like moving, and I was like, "Hold up, that's not construction." Anyway, so it was an earthquake. Everything was fine, but it was pretty nerve shattering or rattling or whatever. So we ended up, it was fine because we had to get to the airport anyway to fly out. So get to the airport and somehow I had the wrong time in. So we were like 6 hours early. So they wouldn't let us check in, but we couldn't go back to the hotel because it was super far, whatever. So we waited out there forever. We're all tired anyway. So we go through the airport, finally board our flight, hop on the flight. And at this point, we're heading to Cappadocia to see the cool, like you guys have seen the pictures in Turkey of like the hot air balloons and everything.
Mhm.
So that's where we're going. And we're specifically going for my daughter's eighth birthday. I'm super excited. And I just remember like being on the airplane and being like, you know what? Turkey's a lot bigger than I thought it was because I thought Cappadocia was like an hour away, like on flight. Like it looks so close on the map. But I was like, huh, I don't know. And they had said like it's like a 3.5, 4 hour long flight. And I was like, that is just crazy to me. So we just keep flying and we get to our destination. Then we hop out of the airplane and we get to the airport. And it's just this tiny little airport, cute little airport, And we had got a rental car and they were supposed to actually pick us up at the airport. So we had landed earlier than anticipated, or that doesn't make sense. No, no, it did because, yeah. Sorry, we had landed earlier than anticipated. And we keep waiting for the rental car, and after a while, finally, it's like a half an hour late at this point, and we're like, that's kind of weird. Like, this is excessively late at this point. So, tried calling them, couldn't get a hold of anyone. So, my husband pulled up in his Google map. He's let's just take an Uber over there. So, he's like, what's the address? I give it to him. And he's like, it says it's like 12 hours away. And me, I'm just like, okay, then obviously that's not the right place, hon. Like, come on, let's use our brains here. And I like look at the map in my phone and I'm like, why are we right next to Armenia? So, I flew us to the wrong side of the country in Turkey. I, in my head, thought that because we were flying to the airport, Kayseri, and I thought that the initials KSY for the airport code, like I didn't double check it. I was like,
Yeah.
obviously it's Kayseri, right? So I booked the flights there. We ended up in, it's called CARS, KARS. That's the airport, KSY is the airport code for that. So, um, almost had a breakdown there, but I was really proud of us. We figured it out. We were able to run back in, beg the Turkish Airlines people to let us get on this flight to Ankara. They got us in from the time I bought the tickets, which also luckily only ended up being like $30 a person because I was like, oh my gosh, like this is going to break the bank. Hopped on the plane and made it to Ankara. Then we grabbed some rental cars, drove out to Cappadocia. It all worked out.
Wow.
But sorry, yeah. So that was my worst mistake. But my point being, like, it still ended up being an amazing trip. We had so much fun, and I have this crazy story to tell. So yeah, like manage your expectations. It can be really difficult. Bad things, stupid things are probably going to happen. Bad things and stupid things happen at home. You just have to go with the flow, be prepared, try not to stress, control don't try and control the things you can't control, all those things. Like they really truly apply here. So, as far
Yeah.
as like specific, like, oh, pack this and don't pack this and take that, like, I don't really have advice from you there. I'm still figuring it out, but I can say manage your expectations, go with the flow, have fun, and just like know things are going to happen, but it's okay.
Yeah. No, and I mean, you wouldn't have that story, and now you definitely probably double check the airport codes every time you book. I think
I
that's
absolutely do. And everyone's always like, and you know what though? My husband learned a lesson too because he is super awesome and like he's so good at really stepping in. And that I remember like that trip, I just had he had kind of just been like, oh, whatever, whatever. And I had taken over all the planning and stuff, and I was really stressed about the whole thing. And it was really eye-opening for him too to be like, okay, like I should have helped more. And both of us, it was a good conversation to have, and we are both working hard to make sure it's evenly distributed, the work, the mental load of planning trips and everything like that. And yeah, so it was a win-win.
no, it's so true. I mean that's the thing that you learn through traveling is there's always gonna be things that happen. And if you
Yeah,
didn't take the chance and risk, then you wouldn't have that funny story to tell. I mean, there's always countless
100%.
stories that
100%.
yeah, no, absolutely. What about
Sorry, my daughter's walking in. Okay.
but yeah, no, I would love to learn just a little bit more about like strategy. So points and miles. I think one of the biggest questions I get is from either, again, it could be families, it could be parents, it could be people who are just wanting to travel more. Their biggest question is always, well, what credit card's right for me? What's a good one to get started with? And I always like to say, it's not what's on social media with the biggest welcome bonus. Sometimes those are
Mhm.
great, but that may
Yeah.
not fit your style. For me, we spend a lot of our money on travel, and that's really our biggest expense, I would say.
Hmm.
So one may work better for me, but I also don't have four kids. So, right. So most of your bill may be differently spent than mine may be. So would love to just
Yeah.
hear from you, like over the years, how you've kind of learned what credit cards may be the best for you, and then how do you strategically map that out to maximize points and miles?
Right, right. Okay, so I'm so sorry. My daughter's talking to me again. Okay, so strategies. Um, a couple of things. I feel like I always give like some really generic answers here. Like people really want like very specific things, but I would not be doing you a favor by telling you specific things to do because we have such different situations. Like just from like job flexibility, when we can travel, the type of points and miles, like how many you can earn, what kind of credit card you can get, all these different things. Like I can tell you exactly what I do, and I will like delve into that, just to give some inspiration and stuff. But it really is true. Like there isn't a one size fits all here. And the sooner that you can like kind of accept that and figure out your own thing, the much happier you're going to be. Because I remember kind of in the beginning, like I would read these blogs and they'd be like, you need to use these points and you need to stay at this Hyatt and you need to do this. And I was like, okay, I need the Hyatt points and I need this. And then, started realizing quickly, like, that's not going to work for our situation because once again, it's one thing like for, a plane ticket, if it's 20,000 miles for a one-way trip and like $50 or whatever. But then when you times that by five or even six, like things really, really, really change. So, yeah, I'll start out by saying like we fly economy.
Yeah.
Like 100%, if we all flew business class, first of all, just finding that much like availability for all of us would be, it is possible. And I have done it. I actually have on Iberia, but that's like, that doesn't even count because it was like a cheat code back in the day. It was so cheap to be able to like fly business class. But it's just, it's so many points and miles and just finding availability for six people. And I'm also not opposed to us like flying separately, but even finding like three business class seats, like it's kind of hard. And I want to travel more. I don't want to travel like, I actually hate flying. Well, okay, I can't say that. My therapist might be watching. I have struggled with the fear of flying my whole entire life. And it's gotten much better over the years, but I still don't love it. But like at this point, I'm like, you could throw me in the cargo hold. Like I'm gonna not enjoy it no matter what. So, it's so if you do like appreciate business class, that's totally fine. But I will definitely be speaking more to like the economy class flyers. I think I told you earlier. What did I say? Like I was I didn't say hobo. What was the word I said? Like I don't know. I'm kind of like a hobo, cheapskate traveler, dirtbag. I'm a little
Yeah.
bit of a dirtbag traveler. Like we'll sleep on airport floors and stuff. But so as far as credit cards go, I do really appreciate any kind of flexible transferable points in that you can use them for multiple programs, right? I think that there's a lot of information out there on different points and miles. It can get super confusing. But what's so nice, like about flexible points is you have these points that can be used in so many different programs. So Chase Ultimate Rewards, that's a favorite. And they're really cool because they can be transferred to United or to Hyatt or to lots of different programs. But then, there's kind of a level two to that where like let's say I live near an American Airlines hub and that works really well for me. But I'm like, oh wait, my ultimate rewards don't transfer to American Airlines. That's not going to work for me. Well, actually, American Airlines is part of the One World Alliance, and that means you can use points and miles from other One World Alliance programs to fly American Airlines. So, for example, one of the transfer partners for Chase is like Iberia, and so those miles with Avios, I hear it every single
Yeah.
way under the sun. I'm just going to say Avios. So they can be used to book a flight on American Airlines. So it really just gives you so many options. And then, so many of their partners are part of the different alliances. There's three big alliances, Star Alliance, One World, Sky Team. So really all of a sudden your options are just opened up so much. And you were talking like, almost every major airline in the world you can book a flight on thanks to these flexible points. So rather than like if I just have United miles, and I'm stuck flying United or just their partners, and that's not going to work for me, or there's not any really good redemptions or anything, I can go ahead and like look at, what do we have with British Airways and who did they partner with? Or what about, Air France, Flying Blue, their Sky Team. So now Delta's just opened up to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of cool options. So I love flexible points, and I do really like Chase Ultimate Rewards points a lot. Um, Now, kind of going to sound like contradictory here, but I will say that for as long as I've been in this hobby, American Airlines have always come in, those miles have always come in so great for my family. I will say that if you want to use American Airlines miles, like you need to be a flexible traveler. Like I generally say you don't pick the destination, the points and miles do. And one other thing that a lot of people know about me is I end up in Paris a lot and I end up in Central America a lot because it's really easy to find cheap lots of seats, award availability on American Airlines to those different destinations. And then once we get there, then we can kind of, go wherever we want from there. So yeah, I love American Airlines miles. I've gotten flights to Guatemala before, which is one of our favorites for 8,000 miles a person,
Wow.
So they can be really, really, really good. It's not saying like you should go out tomorrow and get all the American Airlines cards and sign up because once again, like they can have some horrific redemptions.
Yeah.
But if you get lucky and you're flexible, then you can be like, oh, hey, there's 8,000 points on Christmas Eve to go to Timbuktu. Like, I'll
Yeah.
take it. So,
Yeah. No, no,
we're
I was gonna say all really good points. And I that's probably the one biggest question or biggest misconception is, oh, I have to have the co-branded card with the airline, or I have to have, and
Mhm.
those are great. They do come in handy, but when you're first starting out, I think one thing that a lot of people don't know is the transferable currencies, whether that's from
Mhm.
the CSP, the CSR with Ultimate Rewards, whether that's from Capital One Venture X rewards credit card, the Capital One
Yeah,
Venture, and just being able to
yeah,
transfer those. I mean, I'm in Charlotte and we're an American Airlines hub, and
yeah.
being able to use, I mean, for our flight here and on our honeymoon, we're flying Qatar because we were able to combine that with British Airways and use Ultimate Rewards
Yeah.
and Capital One miles, and then also just a bunch of other flights. Being an American, if I didn't have enough American miles since I don't travel enough for work anymore,
Mhm.
I you can use British Airways and they have the same. And then
100%.
you introduce Alaska, right? And that's
Yeah.
so there's so many different ways, and I think that's definitely one area that a lot of
Mhm.
people find it overwhelming and are confused about is
Yeah.
not understanding that and just thinking I have to only fly with one airline and I only can
Hmm.
stay with one hotel and I have to stay a ton of nights. And that's a misconception I
To
had
get.
when I first started traveling is I have to fly a
Mhm.
lot. I have to stay a lot of nights. And you don't. You can use everyday spending to do
Yeah.
that. It's just understanding those transfer partners.
Yeah, 100%. And even like, I think sometimes people like think like, well, but I want the benefits of like status or whatever. But even at this point, particularly with hotels, like find, if you are even a tiny bit into this points and miles world, you will know multiple people that have like globalist status who can guest of honor you. By the way, funny story. I thought GOH, that's like that's what everyone abbreviates that to, for years. I thought it meant Gift of Hyatt. It's guest of honor. But anyways, like probably like 3 years ago, I finally found out and I was like, oh, it's guest of honor. So I'm just gonna call it Gift of Hyatt anyway, though, because I like to be
I love
different
it.
and edgy. But so people, if you have a friend that's globalist, they can gift of Hyatt you, guest of honor you into a point stay. And that means you can enjoy like free breakfast, which when you're traveling with a family is huge. Let me tell you, when you're in like Paris, free breakfast saves you a small fortune
Yeah.
because food adds up fast. That's our biggest expense is food. And then the other cool thing, like, specifically in Paris, like we stay at the Étoile a lot, the Hyatt Étoile. And if you have globalist status, you get the free breakfast, but then they have snacks at the lounges throughout the day. So we would just kind of fill up and then we just basically would splurge on dinner. And that was the only meal we really had to pay for. It saves you a fortune. It's really, really nice. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What
So as
about
far as like perks go, yeah, you don't even there's ways to get perks without having to stay a million times at a specific brand.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to focus in on because a lot of listeners are people who maybe they have one, maybe they have two credit cards between, them and their significant other. They have families, they want to travel. I mean, are there specific credit cards that you like for maybe a lot? I mean, like you said, most of your bills are on food. I'm guessing groceries. My mom is always like, now that you three boys are out of the house, we spend a fourth of how much we were feeding you as teenage boys. So, like, are there specific credit cards you recommend, whether it's restaurants, groceries, Just anything that you find are really good for families for their spending habits.
Mhm. Yeah. So as you know, we need a lot of points and miles to travel. So our specific strategy isn't so much to focus on like category spending. Like, you have the Amex Gold, which is 4 times at grocery stores, which is awesome. And I have definitely used that and I will use that when I don't have another option. But for us specifically, we are always working on a new welcome offer. So
Mhm.
that means, like a welcome offer, you'll see these cards that say earn 50,000 points when you spend $2,000, or maybe we get a little crazy and we have a new, Amex Business Platinum card with a 250,000 point offer and we have to spend $20,000, right? I don't know about you, but that's a huge
Yeah.
spend limit for us. So rather than, worrying about getting 4 times at the grocery store, I'm going to be using that platinum card and knocking out that $20,000 spend because 250,000 membership rewards points is way better than I can do
Hmm.
maxing out. So that is my personal strategy. And I totally realize that that is not for everyone. There's a lot of people that don't like the idea of having tons of new credit cards. I would say to, ask yourself and challenge. Sorry, just 1 second. My dog's barking. Yeah. So, opening lots of different credit cards isn't for everyone, but number one, I would have you challenge that belief and ask yourself, like, why? And I think I hear things all the time like, oh, I don't want to track all that. I don't want to this. I don't want to do that. Um, like I said in the beginning, is a professional, like, kind of dirtbag who's not great at tracking and still manages to do this. It's not as bad as you think. And the benefit of tracking just, even 20 minutes a day, which I feel like is excessive, um, is going to have like a huge, huge, huge payoff. I mean, my kids have been to almost 30 countries. They've stayed in the craziest hotels ever, so it's worth it to just track a little bit. So that being said, I would definitely ask you to like challenge your belief into like why you're afraid to open more credit cards. And if it is something like, oh, I'm afraid it'll hurt my credit score, that's not true. Also, if it hurt your credit score, then why do they keep giving me more credit cards? Something to think about. Also, yeah, so I just lost my train
Well,
of
no,
thought.
no, no. I was going to ask. I mean, that's no. You bring up a great point. What? Because that's a big thing I hear. And before getting into
Mhm.
this, and before understanding that, and just applying for that and credit score in general, a lot of people think that. So
Yeah.
why? I mean, why is that a big misconception? Or I mean, from your time in the space, what have you learned that
Yeah.
you can share your expertise on?
I learned really quickly that credit scores are pretty easily manipulated, first of all, and that a lot of the things that we believed about our credit scores, that really common things that I've always been told my whole life, were just not true. Like, tell me if you had heard this. I'd always been told, like, if you have too much credit available, banks don't like that because it's a potential for you to like go into a lot of debt. So, like, you want to close your credit cards and things like that because having too much available credit is a bad thing. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that? Yeah, that's like a big persistent myth that still to this day goes around. And the reality is that's just not true. And really, the more credit you have, the better your utilization is. And I won't get it like deep into like what utilization is. Hopefully, you guys know what it
Yeah.
is. If not, I'm sure you have information on it. But it can really help your credit utilization and really kind of offset any negative things you may have on your account because like full disclaimer when I first got married, not disclaimer, like full transparency here. When I first got married to my husband, like we worked in gas and oil. I was 19, he was 21. We just like were like, oh my gosh, like the world is our oyster. And we just spent money like crazy and racked up, credit card debt and all these things. And we didn't even know what we were doing. We didn't even care. So by the time years later, we kind of started looking into this travel hacking hobby, our credit scores weren't good. And it was a little tough in the beginning to get a card. But then I got this card, and then all of a sudden, like my credit score got a little better. And then I got a few more cards. And we did have a little credit card debt at the time, right? And my score just kept getting better. And I was like, this is so weird. But it was because I was offsetting that utilization so much. And it really just, I mean, I think we even had like a collections thing on our account. This is so embarrassing to say. I was like 19 years old, okay,
Yeah.
guys. But even like with the collections on our account and everything, like the more credit I had and the more utilization I had open, it really truly just like didn't even matter. Now, obviously, there's a point, like if you're making all kinds of late payments and things like
Yeah.
that, that's going to be a problem. But the idea that if you have too much credit or opening too many credit cards is problematic, that's just not true.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah. And I mean,
yeah.
I think I had a conversation a couple weeks ago. It's just around, the first thing is building that foundation. I think you guys,
Mhm.
like you said, you were 19, you went out and you
We
went.
learned the hard way.
Yeah, yeah, but I think it's right. If you have a budget in place, you're being financially responsible and you want to learn how to do it, there's nothing wrong with it. But that's something I hear all the time is, well, isn't it impacting your credit score? Isn't it this or that? And it's something that people have been told their whole life. And it's once you get
Mhm.
into the hobby, it's kind of crazy what you
Yeah.
learn.
Well, and also like on that same note, it was drilled into my head like debt is bad and credit cards are what give you debt. If you have credit cards, like you're kind of a bad person.
Yeah.
Like it was like a moral thing for me. I remember one time being at the store with a friend and she dropped her wallet and a couple credit cards fell out and I was like really disappointed and judgmental in her. Like my heart dropped. I was like, oh, she's a bad person. Like, what? Like I know I was a horrible little 19-year-old, but it really it was just really an interesting concept. And I think a lot of people still feel that way. We have, people like Dave Ramsey, which nothing against Dave Ramsey, he does have some great information, but really instill into you like credit cards are bad. And I don't always disagree with him. Like, you know your limits, Kate. If
Yeah.
you're an overspender, if you can't control yourself, that's okay. Like, don't go get credit cards. Don't put yourself in that situation. But if you're pretty like you trust yourself and you're good with that, like there's just no reason not to. And even if you don't want to travel and you don't care about cash back, just protections on your purchases. If your
Yeah.
card gets stolen, like you're covered. There's so many conveniences about a credit card. Like I can't even imagine going back, even if I never traveled again, like going back to using just a debit card.
Same, same. No, all really good points and helpful. I do want to transition a little bit into family travel. I know we've been talking about it a
Yeah.
little bit, but I think a lot of people are always like, they're like, oh, I'll do it when I'm older. And then you hear so many stories of, oh, I wish, like, what are one of my favorite questions when I was in my 20s was, what are your top three biggest regrets? And there's actually a book that I heard of that are like the five biggest regrets of the dying. And it's just like
Mm.
understanding that. And for families, a lot of times parents are, oh, I'll get to it when the kids are out of the house. But I mean, what are they missing out on by not exposing kids to just new places, cultures, and travel in general?
Everything. Oh my gosh, everything. It is the best. So, not to like trauma dump here, kind of like feel bad for myself and stuff, but I do. So years ago, we moved to a different state, and it has been a struggle for the last 8 years for us to connect, to make friends. I've always had an easy time making friends. I've always connected well, and it was really, really hard. And there was a point in my oldest life when he was in fourth. He was 9 years old. So third grade, I think it was, really young. And he'd been bullied so badly. Like his teacher called me one day and told me that she thought that he was suicidal. It was really, really bad. So I had already been traveling quite a bit with my kids, but it became that much more important at that point in my life because it was the only time I felt like I actually like fit in and I connected with people. And it was such a weird thing because I would go to some like random country where we didn't even speak the language and it didn't matter. Like my kids would be out there playing soccer and just making friends and playing and just like these connections. They couldn't even communicate with each other, but it was just like the sense of belonging like helped us survive everything we were going through here, like not being able to make friends and not being able to just like connect with people. It really, I mean, it was the worst thing, one of the worst things I've ever experienced in my life. And so traveling just like saved us in that way. So it's just kind of interesting because my kids got to see like humanity at its best and just like just learning to not judge people. Like it doesn't matter what you look like, what you sound like. It doesn't even matter if you speak the same language. Like my kids got to experience firsthand being accepted no matter what. And I feel like that lesson has stayed with my kids through their whole lives. And even to this day, like they are the most accepting, inviting people. And it is one of my proudest things. Like that is, it means everything to me. So yeah, like travel is everything for me. It has shaped our worldview. It has changed our lives in so many ways. And I am so grateful for it. And that's why I haul my crying butt onto an airplane all the time, just thinking we're going to die because I know we're not going to, and it's going to be worth it in the end. So yeah, that was kind of deep and heavy because we've been like so
No,
lighthearted
it's
and having fun. But I want other people to know, like you, if you are struggling with like connections and feeling lonely and stuff, try traveling because it's going to
yeah.
change your life.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. That's very helpful and just yeah, I mean you didn't have to and it's pretty
Yeah.
cool and I think I mean just for people who haven't gone international or who haven't a lot of the times they haven't experienced and it's I was talking to someone earlier and it's just like it's not like the US where it's work 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 and you right like you can't focus on those type of things and I
Yeah.
think you start to go to different countries and meet new people and see different
Mhm.
cultures a lot of
Yeah.
those things, right? You realize and you start to just respect other things and see the world a little bit differently. And the fact that you're
100%.
doing it for your kids is awesome because in the long run, most people who come on the podcast, I always like to find out when did you start traveling? A lot of times they'll travel, somewhat in the US, but it's like that kind of adventurous mindset that then
Hmm.
gets them to travel more when they're
To
older. And
go
it just
further and yeah.
exactly. And you learn a lot and a lot of the times when you're talking to someone, the people who have traveled more usually can have the conversations can be more fun. Like you said, the
Yeah.
story where you booked the wrong flight to the wrong side of the country and
Yeah.
just the crazy right, like some of the crazy stuff that you're telling me about when you were in Croatia, when you had to go to the ER,
Yeah.
just but those stories don't happen
Yeah.
if you aren't traveling. So no, I
For
appreciate
sure.
you sharing that. Where else have because I know you talked about you've gone on extended summer vacations, Spanish school,
Yeah.
like that's where a lot of people just flexibility a lot of the times is one of the hardest
Mhm.
things. People are like, oh, well, we only have spring break and then it's too
For sure.
expensive, or we have this, and like you have to build it in around your schedule. But what are some of the best places and best practices that you've been just for family adventures over the summer?
Yeah, I will say one thing that we end up doing a lot is we kind of travel in the off season. So kind of sucks because I it doesn't suck. I love it. I hate winter, but somehow I managed to like always be around winter because no one wants to go on vacation to winter. But if you're a cheapskate like I am and everything, it makes the most sense. But yeah, so we're pretty happy-go-lucky, like easy-go. We kind of love everywhere we go. Like it's actually a problem because every time we go somewhere, I'm like, I love it here so much. Like, let's live here. My husband's like, you say that about everywhere. But places that we do end up going back to a lot, and I know earlier I said it's because the points and miles like take us there, but also fortunately, they are also some of my favorite places in the world. Guatemala, like we're obsessed with Guatemala. I literally could live there. It's just incredible. Like there's imagine just like the most beautiful place you've ever seen. It's like the city, the country of eternal spring. So the flowers and the fauna are just beautiful. And then you have this like the Mayan culture there is just still like so prevalent. So it's kind of like a blast, like a little time travel, which is just incredible. And they're the nicest people, and the food's delicious, and it's cheap, and it's on the same time zone. So we don't even have to worry about like the jet lag and adjusting to the time zone. And then you like walk out and there's just this like volcano exploding and there's lava. And you're just like, this is not real life. Like it's just crazy. So we love, love, love Guatemala. And recently we spent a bunch of time in Peru, Chile, Argentina, Uruguay. I really do love Peru. Like Peru is incredible. We spent about 2 weeks there. I drove all over with my kids in a stupid Toyota Corolla on the worst roads ever. Do not recommend that, by the way. If you go to Peru and want to drive, don't get a Corolla. But yeah, Peru was fantastic. It's not as cheap as like somewhere like Guatemala because it's so popular. But yeah, it's great. We also love we love Paris. We love France, which is kind of funny because you probably like see this all the time. People either love Paris or hate Paris. There's no in between. And like my husband, I thought for sure he would be like, oh, Paris, like, ugh, gross. He's obsessed with it. My kids are obsessed with it. So Paris is fun. And here's my little secret to Paris. If you have little kids and you want to do some kind of crazy trips, I know Paris is probably the last place you'd think of going. I love Paris with babies, Kate. They treat you like royalty. I mean, I would walk up like just holding my baby, and people would be like, no, like go to the front of the line. And I'm like, what? Are you sure? Because at home, people look at me like,
Hmm.
should have thought about that before you had a baby,
Yeah.
back a line. And here they were like, no, go. And these huge lines. And I was just like, really? Oh my gosh. So I keep joking with my husband that the next time we go to Paris, we're going to bring a baby doll with us. So people will like,
That's smart.
but Paris is great. Iceland is so fun with kids. Oh my gosh. We loved Iceland. We went in the dead of winter over the winter solstice. So we had like 3.5, 4 hours of daylight, right? Sounds kind of miserable. And I'm going to be completely honest. Like we never adjusted to the time change. We'd be up at like 3 a.m. just sitting there like, so this sucks. But it was just the best. We would get her up, the sun would come up around like 11 o'clock or something, and we'd hop in the car and we'd go drive around. And I remember specifically one time it was pitch black and it was like 3 o'clock or something. I only had a few hours of daylight. And there was this hot spring I really wanted to go to. And it was a bit of a hike. And we were totally unprepared for it. Like we didn't have towels. So we stopped at a convenience store and bought some washcloths. And we used our phone lights and we hiked out to this like hot spring in the middle of the mountains, just with like stars everywhere, like not an ounce of electricity. And we all like stripped down to our underwear. And me and my kids and my husband just swam in this hot spring completely to ourselves, had the best time ever, and then dried off with our little washcloths and then like hiked back to the car and just like the best adventures in Iceland. You can have so much fun. And as crazy as it sounds like going in a time like the winter, um, don't don't like completely say no to it because it can be really, really cool. So those are some of my top places. Like I said, I kind of
Awesome.
love everywhere I
Yeah.
go, but those are really good ones.
Well,
So yeah,
it's no, that's helpful. I mean, I think Paris, that's funny. The baby story now people when they're start to travel with babies, they know that and they it might make it more
yeah.
accessible. And I've heard great things about Guatemala. I had friends who have been actually I had a guest a couple months back. She was a tour guide in Guatemala. So yeah, her name
Lucky.
was Valerie Clemens, if anyone wants to check that out and wants to do a deeper dive into Guatemala. And I had a buddy who just got back from Chile, Argentina. He didn't do Peru, but I have other
Fun.
friends. So yeah, it's I've
Oh,
heard good
so
things about all. So that's good to know. And all are accessible from the States. It's not most of those places you
totally
can get a direct
fairly
flight, if
easily.
not one
Yeah.
one layover.
Yeah, we're in the Utah, Salt Lake area, so we usually have one layover, but it's no big deal. It's
Yeah.
pretty easy. Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of like also give a shout out and like speak out to like moms or dads who want to travel with their kids as a solo parent. Because it's one thing to have like two parents and your kids involved. It's another to be one parent with a lot of little kids. And one of my biggest things is like I just want to empower, especially women, to travel with their kids with or without their spouse. Like if your spouse can't come and they're supportive and everything, like go for it. Once again, like if you're already crazy, go be crazy somewhere cool and just recognize like you are stronger than you think you are. You can handle things that you don't think you can handle. Like don't let it get into your head. Once again, I've said this like 5 times. I literally get on airplanes like crying hysterically, okay? I'm like, we're gonna die. I'm probably gonna, I get like a lot of propaganda stuck in my head. Like, we're going to Guatemala. I'm like, yeah, we're all gonna get kidnapped by the drug cartel, like all these thoughts going through my head. But, every single time I've been, knock on wood, I have never felt anything but like love and safety. The worst experiences I've had have actually been in like Dallas and Houston. Those
Yeah.
were some really scary experiences. So, just like, it's scary, but don't let your thoughts like stop you from living your dreams. So that's, if you take away anything from here is just like feel empowered to do this because like you can do this. I promise. If I can do this, like you guys, I am such a mess. Like I literally flew it to the wrong side of Turkey. Okay. If I can do this, you can do this. I accidentally booked a place in Guatemala once that we had like a scorpion infestation. Like, Okay, like I am a mess. So if I can do it, you are going to be golden.
I love it. I don't know if there's a better way to end it than yeah, that was great. But no, I agree. And it's I think we were talking about this when we first met. It was like a lot of the misconception is, oh, I'm going somewhere else. It's scary, but it's like walk outside. Like wherever you may live, like sometimes it's going to be worse where you live. And
Absolutely.
you're not going
Yeah,
to get those experiences and right, you won't have the funny stories like you're telling and yeah, you're gonna have a blast, and no matter when it is, where it is, I think that's the one thing is it doesn't have to be that perfect summer trip where everyone's going
for
to
sure.
Italy or Greece or wherever, right? It can be some of those
Yeah,
other places where it's going to be less expensive, it's going to be less
absolutely.
crowded, and you're there with your family. You're not there to beat right for peak season.
Mhm.
So no, I that's very helpful, and I appreciate you sharing a lot of those tips and tricks, and this has been a great conversation. I mean, I've been laughing for the majority of
Yeah.
the time, which always means it's a good episode. But Tony, where can our listeners find you if they want to connect with you or learn more?
Yeah. So I'm not super big on like social media and stuff. I love Instagram. It's my happy place. So just my personal Instagram, it's Toni, Toni Southam, Southam. If you're wondering why a different last name. So never got around to changing my last name at this point. Um, I had planned on doing it for a long time, so that's why it's like super confusing. And it's not doing it at this point. We've been married 20 years, like, we're just, yeah. But anyway, so it gets a little confusing. But yeah, so you can find my Instagram, just Toni Southam. And then also I'm still very active with Forbes Advisor. We're constantly publishing new articles all about points and miles and credit cards and strategies. I've written a few articles just on some of our family trips. I wrote a really detailed one. We spent several weeks in Mexico, like in the Oaxaca region a few years ago, just me and the kids. So I wrote like pretty extensively about that. So just anywhere at Forbes Advisor and their credit cards and travel rewards. Otherwise, shoot me a message on Instagram. I'm always happy to talk strategies with people, help you guys out. I know we didn't delve super deep into strategies, and that's my fault because I'm all over the place. But I'm always happy to talk more with it, even though I said, like there isn't one strategy for anyone, but I'm happy to run ideas around with you guys, help you figure out. So yeah, I'm pretty open book. But that's kind of like the only two places you can find me. So
Cool. Yeah, no, and we'll share that in the show notes wherever you get your podcast and listen and watch. But yeah, we I appreciate you coming on and listeners. If you want to check out, if you want to get started, we do have a one pager of how to get started with rewards and credit cards. I think
awesome.
that helps answer a lot of questions. If you're new, make sure you give us a follow, subscribe. That way you don't miss any
Yeah.
episodes that come out each week. We have Tuesday solo tutorials that go through specific topics, and then Wednesdays we have amazing guests like Tony that come on and share their expertise. And we'll look forward to talking to everyone next week. Thanks for tuning in.